Today, the conversation is around charging towards an eco-friendly future. Before getting into the room, we had a brief chat, a very chirpy. Everybody was like sharing their thoughts, what was going to happen, next. And there are four big pillars that are, in the EV conversation. One is infra, one is cost, one is policy, and of course, one is the sales. And someone said that it's not the sales in EV, it's the after sales that matter. Let me start with you, Anmol. My first question is, we talk about, the eco-friendly future, and there's a huge paradox. 70% of our energy is still coming from fossil fuels, and then we convert them into EVs and then expect the eco-friendly part of it to happen. How do you see the overall conversations in the EV eco-friendly space?
At least at my end, I am very clear in my head that we are a zero tailpipe emission company. We are not a zero emission company. So I think we should clearly recognize. In fact, I have mentioned it more than enough number of times to our team and all our marketing, communication, etc., etc. We have altered to say we are a zero tailpipe emission company and not a zero emission company with a mission to get to zero emissions. So how we are going to do this is that I'm also from the power sector. In my previous after, I was a renewable energy entrepreneur. So there is a rule which is got passed by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha about 3 odd months back, which basically allows open access of power up to 100 kilowatt. At least at BluSmart, all our charging hubs are above 100 kilowatt limit. So what we are planning to do is that already the areas in which we operate, which is Delhi, Haryana, Karnataka, the regulators, we are working very closely with the regulators to ensure that the regulation which has been passed by Lok Sabha also gets passed by the regulatory commission in the state. And you would see that we would be going 100% renewable powered charging stations by March or April of next year. I'm assuming if by January the regulators clear it. Even though, our cost of electricity at Delhi is just 4.5 rupees a kilowatt hour, and the cost of landed electricity through renewables is going to be 5.5 rupees a kilowatt hour, adding all the charges, etc., etc. We are willing to take a hit of 1 rupee a kilowatt hour, but we want our mission of going from zero tailpipe emissions to zero emissions to happen very soon. And that's what the strategy that we are applying at BluSmart, but everybody will have their own strategy. I just shared mine.
Ketan, coming to you with the same question, give me the hop story and the overall conversations in the EV space. What is the context right now that you are addressing?
Well, unfortunately, Ketan couldn't make it, so Vivek. So, but I'm glad that you asked this question. We initiated Hop Electric Mobility in early 2019, and I've spent almost 7-8 years in electric vehicle industry. But when we anticipated, me, Ketan, and some of our fellow colleagues, the idea was very clear that we wanted to do something for the masses, because electric two-wheeler is almost 70% of the total automotive industry. And we wanted to come up with a complete solution. The idea was not just to give you a good quality product, but at fair and competitive price also. And now when it comes to the product, Hop Electric Mobility is just not a manufacturer who manufactures two-wheeler. We are equally focused, and I would say find ourselves responsible to pay attention towards the entire ecosystem, wherein we are developing I would say charging swapping stations and charging stations as well. So in next 3 to 4 years of time, you would see the entire ecosystem wherein Hop Electric Mobility would contribute apart from the scooter. We would have our own battery, we would have our own charging and swapping stations. With this thought, we anticipated, and currently the battery swapping station and the charging is at beta testing level. It's under progress, and we are getting quite optimistic output so far. We are looking forward to the next year, 23, 24, and hopefully this would be a game-changing year for us. So far, we have got good response looking at our scooter. As I discussed with you earlier also, that we strongly feel that this is not a sales industry and we are not selling anything. This is not a water bottle or a cup of coffee where your experience dies with you. It's a purely service industry, and that's what going to create a lot of difference in next couple of years, because it's not the competition, but we would have legends in front of us. So it's the service, it's your attitude, it's the character of the organization which going to take it apart. So we are looking forward to it. Hopefully, we would get a good quality products and responsibility towards the customer to give them a fair and competitive product.
No, very well said. I think it's of course a service, industry in that sense, especially given the current scene that we have pan-India. Vani, so if you look at your, if you look at the category that you're operating in, it's pretty much you're on your own, right from the sales to high cost and then developing the infra. Is it a task to actually be in this, EV space at this time, given the entire amount of work that you have to do as a company and then be profitable?
Sure, thanks for this question. So I honestly believe that EVs cannot be built and sold in silos. We have to work towards this as an ecosystem. And as an OEM, it is our prime responsibility to kind of alleviate the inhibitions of the buyer and make him comfortable to take this plunge into a new technology, right? So as an ecosystem, I mean the charging and service stations, they are very important because it's a chicken and egg problem. Range anxiety bothers people more than the total cost of ownership of the vehicle or the higher upfront cost. As an OEM, we ourselves have taken this upon us to contribute to the charging infrastructure. We have about 200 charging points live around Delhi NCR itself and others in other cities as well. So this is one. Servicing is very important. As an OEM, we are running our own operated service stations. In Delhi itself, we have 9. Now, total cost of ownership was the other question. So given the higher upfront cost of the vehicle due to the battery being sold with it, there is definitely a gap between an equivalent ICE vehicle as well as the EV. Financiers need to kind of come ahead and help reduce the EMIs and the rate of interests which the end customer is looking to get. We are working very closely with financiers. We have about 60 to 70 partnerships to kind of strategically placed with Euler to help Euler customers. So these 2-3 points, I think, as an ecosystem, we need to develop ourselves. And being an OEM, we can't just make a vehicle and sell it without this ecosystem being present.
Absolutely. I think without the ecosystem, it's not possible. And the financing side, I have a couple of people on my left who would be addressing that. Coming to you, Pankaj, we started with that energy, and our topic is also, charging towards the eco-friendly future. In terms of clean energy and EV, on the policy front, are we doing enough?
So I'm saying that when we talk about policies in terms of presence, if in terms of putting up vehicle manufacturing subsidies are there, then probably for adaptation, government is giving a consumer side subsidy also. There are subsidies which are and standards which are getting built in terms of charging infra also. But when we primarily talk about policies on for the financing side of it, availability for people who are currently financing it, there are very limited opportunities which are available. In everybody in the financing side, everybody is looking that electric vehicle financing should be coming under the priority sector lending, so that the lower rate interest can be offered to us and eventually we can pass it to the consumers. Correct? That is not happened yet. When we talk about today, when we talk about specifically large big banks like ICICI, HDFC, IndusInd Bank, they don't have a EV financing policies in place. Correct? They are not doing as a vehicle finance. So whatever the customers that they are even catering to in terms of B2B, they are primarily into a B2B loans rather than to be a vehicle loans. So their EV financing policy is not in place. And that's a challenge that a lot of companies are facing. we as an NBFC, when we go to these large banks or large institutions, everybody is have a question mark on, you know, quality of product, longevity of product, and the product risk associated with financing these. So those are the challenges that the EV financing sector is currently dealing with.
Right, right. So a lot of issues, I mean, you have just thrown up, you know. I think there needs to be a holistic way of looking and addressing this EV and clean energy conversation. That's what I could gather from what you said. I want to come to you, Arpit, with, you know, there was a question that finance, when you finance EV venture, you know, there has to be a holistic, you know, viewpoint even at that stage. First, give me, I mean, when you make investments, what do you look at, you know, as far as the EV conversation is concerned?
There are multiple different kind of businesses in electric vehicles, and multiple entrepreneurs on this panel represented. I'm sure people in the audience also. So therefore, everything has to be looked differently. If I were to evaluate Anmol's business, I can't compare this with, Pankaj's business. And then of course, Vani runs a very different business. So we can't say which will win, which will not win. It's very hard. Broadly, the concept of venture capital remains very simple. It has to be a very fundable proposition in terms of clear differentiation, cost to the market, and so on. Good team, but it gets become very complicated. 2-3 things that I've learned in the past is, one is in terms of the OEM business, we realize that it becomes very capital intensive. Therefore, it is not something that a lot of VCs would be interested in. In terms of the financing business, we realize that financing businesses are essentially eventually competing with banks, for example. So you'll find it very hard to, you have to build significant moat or find those niches that banks won't target. Mobility businesses like the ones like BluSmart is running, which is more consumer oriented, will require a significant ability on cost of capital and of course operational ability. There are businesses which are into B2B mobility, which will require, again, an ability to manage finance very well in terms of credit and debit. We have a company called Battery Smart and Electric Pay in our portfolio, which are into swapping and charging respectively. Those require integrations and those require network building ahead of everyone else. So as you can see, every business, for example, Euler requires a very different outlook. And we have seen that some of these companies are doing exceptionally well in their sectors. But then it is all about team, Ruhail, if I could summarize in just one word.
So, I mean, what is the current state of policy and the state of eco-friendliness that we talk, when on one side we have the, as we stated, you know, infra problems, policy paralysis, we have, you know, a dependence on fossil fuels. Where does the conversation stand right now?
So, you know, I particularly feel that year 2022 was basically a year of policy restructurings. You know, government took a very strong stand on the battery standards, ICAT and ARI standards from the electric vehicle standpoint, because of course, you know, there were a lot of players in the market and they were not adhering to the global standards. And I would say that government did a right thing, taking a step where they said, you know, these are the standard norms and you have to adhere to them. Now, if you look at the battery standards that came in, if you look at the FAME 2 standards that came in, so I would say that it was getting the house in order sort of in a year. An electric vehicle or a mobility or a sustainable mobility, you know, is such a big market that no single player will be able to win this game, right? It has to be an ecosystem win, and you have to create a proposition where everyone wins, right? You cannot have one single player or one single guy controlling the industry. So there has to be a clear path to the policy, competition, profitability, where everyone can actually make a business out of it and not just look at some strategic investments. So my point is that the policies have been very supporting, but of course, you know, as every year you make your business plans, every year the government will be learning more and implementing more policies, which is going to be in the favor of the country. So that's my view on the policies.
All right. Anmol, when we look at BluSmart, my experience is you never find one cab because there's, of course, people prefer it. I've seen people, voluntarily looking at booking over other, app-based taxis because that's the kind of awareness we have. But what is limiting the growth, if I may call? What are the factors that are limiting the growth of BluSmart right now?
Sure. So, thanks. First of all, apologies that you're not able to get the car. We operate about 2,800 cars in Delhi and about 200 cars in Bangalore. But the market potential for Delhi for a ride-hail service is about close to 60,000 cars. And in 60,000 cars, our model says that in every part of NCR, we will be able to provide a car in less than 10 minutes. That's at 60,000. So we are at about 3,000 right now, 2,800 right now. So we are far from there. So in our core areas of Gurgaon and South Delhi, we are doing slightly better. But most of Delhi, 80% of Delhi NCR, we don't service. But there are three things which are required to increase the BluSmart presence. Number one is money. Number two is charging infra. And three is the number of cars. With God's grace, money's never been a problem. We've had bountiful of money both on the debt side and on the equity side, which has always been more than forthcoming. So money's the last of the constraint. In fact, I always keep telling our team that we are always short of chipsets, commodities, chargers, but never short of money. So that's how at least the last 2 years have been very, very good with venture capitalists, private equity kind of doling out cash. Second is the charging infra, where there is definitely some constraint. We are not looking forward to 1 or 2 points of charging infra set up in some hotel, set up in some mall. That cannot power a large fleet like what Blue operates. To power fleets like Blue, we need massive charging infrastructure where 100, 150 cars charge in parallel. Imagine that in the morning when all our cars move out at about 6, 7 a.m., they come back by about 12 noon. Then between 12 and 4, there is a mobility lull. People have reached their offices, etc. Airports are not functioning. At that time, most of flights are not there. So between 12 and 4, we have to recycle all our cars, make them all fresh for our customers in terms of sanitization, cleanliness, but also in charging. So we need about, in 4 hours, charging infra which can do 3,000 cars charging in 4 hours, which means perhaps we currently operate about 700 fast charging guns. That's the kind of infra which is required. And if we add about 500, 600 cars every month, by the way, we add about 15 cars every day to the platform. So that would mean that we need to add about 3 charging guns every day to the platform. Charging guns is not a problem. It's the infrastructure, the pipeline, which is a big constraint. And the third and the largest constraint, which is the OEM capacity. Unfortunately, on the four-wheel side, there is still not too much competition. Tata Motors leads it by a long margin. I think it's a 90:10 kind of Tata Motors versus rest of the market. So we have great relationships with Tata Motors. Tata Motors, if they sell about close to 3,000, 3,500 cars a month, about close to 15% of that goes to BluSmart. It will be hard for us to even expect from Tata Motors that they sell us more than 15% to just one customer. But Tamo is increasing its capacity. I think they'll go to 5,000-6,000 cars by Jan, Feb. By March, they'll be at about 10,000 cars. And if they retain it at about 15%, I think we'll significantly add the fleet that we need. So today, I think growth is 80% constrained by the number of cars that we get from the OEM ecosystem, which is beyond our scope. 15-20% by the charging ecosystem, and none on the money ecosystem.
Vivek, the focus right now is India and there's Bharat, okay? Is the EV story, what is the state of EV story in the Bharat part of the country?
Well, Make in India initiative plays very, very important role. We all look forward to it because most of the OEMs knows that what has been the story in the last couple of years. How do we outsource several part of the key components from outside, from different part of the globe, and then simply assemble it and sell it to the customer. And as I previously mentioned that this is not a water bottle. So this is what happened when you do not know something and you try to sell that product in the market, then it leads to a lot of difficulties. You may not be able to uh, provide the expected service to the customer. But to be very honest, why this happened? What is the reason behind it? What we strongly feel is that uh, as the government has been so supportive, but we need to get into the details because the devil is always there. Because what is the reason why the charging infrastructure, as Anmol rightly said, I don't think so that money is a problem for any good organization to come up. It's just that, but where do we need to invest that money? I mean, what is that right chemistry that we need to look forward to? That needs to be finalized. I mean, that is still not concluded yet. For example, that we all know that when it comes to electric vehicle, we use NMC or LFP chemical combinations when it comes to the batteries. But are these the future? I don't think so. I mean, if I look at the government policies, there is no such draft which says that this particular chemical combination is good enough. You know, setting up a factory, it's a capital intensive model. So what should we set up for? It's a big challenge. So we need a lot of support here from the government to understand. I mean, Gadkari ji has rightly said, sodium future hai, hydrogen chalega, so lead acid batteries outdated. Now what is going to be the future for LMC, NMC and LFP? So is the sodium is the future? Is the aluminum air is the future? Why aluminum air is the future? Because India holds the 5th largest mines in the world. We don't know the answer yet. So first we need to streamline, we need to set down the policies and procedures so that OEMs can take the right call and address the right challenge of the industry, which is which chemistry, which product and how. And definitely it's a capital intensive model. It would not happen overnight. I mean, you cannot have a baby in 9 days. It takes 9 months of time. So it would take that much of time for sure. But yes, I'm optimistic. I'm looking forward to, if I look at the 2015 as compared to 2022, there's a lot of change. So I'm looking forward to the next year.
So there's a consistent progress, consistent change
Indeed.
that's
Indeed.
happening. Vani, what are the pain points? One is, of course, the cost is sometimes too high, but then the range is what solves the sales part of it. But what are the pain points of that you've observed in your category, and what are the ways to address it? I may request the gentleman if we could have a low volume on that side.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Great. See, for a commercial vehicle owner, what he makes at the end of the day is very important. And his revenue is directly linked to, it's like a function of the payload he carries and the range he travels. Now, when we increase the range of the battery pack, the capacity of the battery pack goes up and the cost goes up. So then we're back to how do we finance this vehicle. So at Euler Motors, we're basically looking at how to maximize his utilization and how to maximize his revenue earning potential so that even though his EMI goes up, he still takes home more at the end of the day. So that's how we are looking to solve this. Other than this, the other issues which we face as an OEM are on the supply part. We really need a robust EV supply chain in India. The government's done a great job about Indianizing the whole product of an EV, and the FAME subsidy comes only with this. But what about the suppliers? Like I mentioned earlier about the ecosystem, all OEMs need to come forward, support tier 2, tier 3 suppliers so that we can have world-class components to build the best EVs for India. So that is one thing I think we will all have to contribute in our way to kind of pick up.
All right, let me go to my left side. That's the beauty of a big panel, left and then. Pankaj, with you, what are the policies? Are there any recommendations on the manufacturing of batteries and energy side that have been submitted to the government? And what has, if yes, what was the response? How was it met with?
So recently there have been policies which has come on the battery side of it, which is AIS 156. Now, when we talk about specifically two-wheelers and all three-wheelers OEMs, they are all going back and doing the re-engineering and re-certifications need to be taken for ICAT. But in my opinion, it is going to create a first 3 months in terms of two-wheelers and three-wheeler sales for first quarter of the new year, January, February and March, two-wheelers, three-wheelers sales are going to be down. But when we talk about mature products like cars and everything, they are already compliant with this. And these are the global standards which have been adopted in the car manufacturing, correct? So when today, because at a low scale, when OEMs are looking at manufacturing electric vehicles, batteries or components, the cost of making it is so high, until unless it comes to a scale, it would not solve the chicken and egg problem, correct? It is a simple, for lower cost you need a higher scale, and that's the ecosystem that currently everybody is facing with in terms of OEM as a supply chain issues everyone is facing. From a financing side, if I say there are very less policies which have come in which are supporting finances at the moment.
Okay, so I have Arpit here to answer it. Arpit, is EV investment profitable for investors? What will make it exciting as we see in other sectors?
It is already very exciting. So we have invested in 5 companies. We'll probably invest in a few more. So we are very excited, and all of our companies seem to be doing quite well. So yeah, there's no doubt.
To you a broader question, when we talk of battery manufacturing, your mic is there. Of course, India has to do a lot, and we have a strategic, we don't have a strategic balance with certain countries which could help us, scale up. In such a scenario, to bring down the cost of the battery and to promote EV, what is the way forward?
Better financing.
What about the rest of the engineering part of it?
See, you can't really, as you said, you can't have a baby in 9 days. It takes it 9 months, right? So I was actually talking to a gentleman outside, and I was telling them, even if you wish with all the money that you want to develop the best product for India next year, you can't. You have to take at least a leeway of 2.5 minimum years, right? But if you ask me one single answer that how you really get this going, I think it's the best way is financing. I mean, if government can bring subsidies in FAME 2, then as the gentleman on my left said, we can have a priority sector lending. That is the only way that you can get into this. And I would say that's actually a better way because, rather than investing a couple of $1 billion in a technology which can actually be redundant in next 2 to 3 years, it's far better to subsidize your technologies that you currently have and really build something which is sustainable in the future.
So when you say redundant, so we are in a beta mode all the time?
Correct.
Right now?
I particularly feel yes. Yeah, we are in a beta mode. I think not a single guy has figured out what's the, if you ask me, even there are many companies who are still trying to find their PMF, right, product market fit. I don't think so that we are ready with the a very standard global product in India.
All right, so that's the reality where we stand. Yeah.
I just would like to add in this. As Sarth rightly said, finance is one of the important. And to be very honest, like we said, that it's evolving. They are supporting. They are actually trying to take a lot of, there are many OEMs, I would say NBFCs who are supporting us. It's just that I think it's like together everyone achieve more. It's like a teamwork. For them to finance a product, we need to manufacture a good quality product. So it's like एक ही गाड़ी की 2 सीट है, वो finance तब आता है जब अच्छा उनको गाड़ी मिलता है. So usually what we have experienced initially is that when we say that the warranty lasts for 3 years, say 5 years, and they feel pretty uncomfortable to finance even for 18 months. Why? Because they don't find that product running in the market. They do their R&Ds and research and development work, I guess. So yes, it's like
These
a teamwork.
Real challenges.
So थोड़ा आप बढ़ो, थोड़ा हम बढ़े. I think उससे ही होगा. खाली finance से कुछ नहीं होगा.
Sure.
So you notice, that a lot we are dependent on outside multiple countries, including China and Taiwan, for technology, also for the components and for hardware, which is semiconductor and mechanical parts included. One important thing to notice is that this has taken them many years to build components which are robust, which has been tested at least in their markets. May not always suffice our needs, but it has taken them some time. Therefore, there is no way out of the situation but by auto component manufacturers or auto OEMs to invest into R&D. So what has not happened, we have a company called Vecmocon, which is building a BMS for smaller vehicles, 2 and 3 wheelers, also multiple other components. It has taken them 5 years to build a good BMS because it takes that long to train the algorithm to be able to deliver the value AIS 156 and so on. It does take that long.
And thanks to all of you for this supercharged, I'll call it the panel. Thank you.